Welcome to the Leadership Lovers Podcast. I'm your host, Will Gladhart, CMO at the Culture Think Tank. At the Culture Think Tank, we empower leaders with metrics that strengthen culture, drive performance, and return. We're here today to learn about the actions leaders have taken to address organizational change. Our guest today is Diane Carney, founder and CEO of FI Home Services, Inc. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start by having you share with our audience a bit about yourself, your background, and of course, your organization.
Sure. My background actually began in banking. And for 25 years, I worked for both large and small banks. So we're thinking national banks as well as local banks. And about 12 years into it is when I ended up in learning and developing, aka training. As a trainer of the previous bank I was at, I spent a lot of time in the SBA lending world, which actually truly fostered my spirit of entrepreneurship. And from a young age, I always knew I wanted to own a business or do something with business, but I never came up with the idea of how or what that I would make successful until one day I was buying a home. I was actually building a home through a builder and realized I have absolutely no idea how to maintain that home. And so one thing led to another, which led to another. And I moved away from the banking world and the L&D world and moved into becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a leader, if you will, an entrepreneur of my company, FI Home Services. And what we do is we help folks just like myself who either don't know how to maintain a home, who don't have the time to maintain a home, or simply can't maintain a home because of some sort of a physical limitation.
Yeah, I love that. I think when we were talking before, you joked that you said, I was building a home, but I think I had a screwdriver. And that's about the extent of my maintenance or home knowledge. And all of a sudden you're like, I realized I need help or I need to build it for myself. We'll be discussing 3 questions today as a warm up to our conversation. Would you share why you believe a healthy culture is critical?
So, well, I will tell you that I have worked for organizations that truly just valued their people. And I have worked for organizations that valued profit over people. And when I took a look at the organizational behavior and just how much more productive people are when they're happy, I can tell you that a healthy culture really inspires people to work smarter, not harder. And when we're working smarter, we are maximizing what we can do and how we can affect things in a positive manner. We're typically limiting unhealthy competition, and instead we're pulling together to really make the overall organization more successful and competitive. And I think that just goes to understanding people. When people are happy, then that positivity just simply makes it so that other people, aka clients or customers, want to be part of that type of an organization however they can. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly critical.
Yeah, I love that you share that because we certainly have seen in the ability to measure well-being across an organization, the ability to look at anxiety, but also to look at the connectivity of people, which directly translates to understanding their role, happiness in the organization, those type of things. It's that piece of the human factor element that is so incredibly valuable. So, and this leads great into our next question. It's been our experience that leaders tend to struggle with 3 key areas: people, process, or profit. In your role as CEO, could you identify which one of those 3 areas represented a cultural challenge within your organization or with others that you worked for?
Sure. I think oftentimes it goes to process. People may challenge me on that, and that's just fine. But the reason I say process is because when you think about the reason an organization is in existence, it's usually to accomplish something, whether it's a service, whether it's to produce something, whether it's to pair people together, whatever it is, there's a process that needs to happen. And that process is written for a reason. And if we don't talk about the why behind it, oftentimes people will either engage in shortcuts or they'll get so concerned about the task list that is supposed to happen that they forget the reason why. And the reason why is truly the spirit of what that process is. When we don't take a true understanding of what it is there that we're trying to accomplish, from the standpoint of the mission of the organization and what the vision is, what are we trying to accomplish in the long run, we tend to separate process from organization, and process because of process ends up leading to, I think, less profit overall. And I think less happy people. For example, I just had a conversation today with somebody who we're looking at bringing on for a sales role. And he says, I don't really want to work a 9 to 4 job. And I said, well, why would I hire you as a salesperson for 9 to 4 when often sales conversations are happening anytime you're around people?
Right.
When we had conversation about that, number one, he was very excited the fact that we weren't going to really engage in busy work for him to fill up 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 or whatever it was. But the next thing was is he truly felt that I understood what the role meant.
Mhm.
And when you look at process and you look at an understanding of what any process is trying to accomplish, it has to go back to the organization and the reason that you're there. And you have to translate that to people that you are bringing onto the organization from the very entry level to the very top. Everybody should have that same understanding so that we're all driving in the right direction. Processes help us to keep within boundaries, but the process isn't the reason. It's the organization and our mission that's the reason they exist.
Yeah, I think that speaking to that alignment of values, but also of clarity from the
Mhm.
leader about the roles, because often not only C-suite individuals, but also managers get really stuck in the task-oriented process piece and start checking boxes. And even as leaders, we sometimes, and entrepreneurs, we can fall into that same trap of checking the boxes, making sure we're accomplishing all the different things, and we forget to step back and realize we have to educate our people, but also look at that people and profit tie to be able to maximize our journey in the organization, but also, as a leader, but also how we are turning a profit and impacting the customers that we serve. Because at the end of the day, without them, we have nothing. We have no profits, we have no people, we have no process. So, in speaking to that challenge, in that process challenge, what did that look like in your organization, and how did it either negatively or positively impact?
A couple of things that I have 100% been part of is organizations that either have undefined processes or have processes that aren't shared from point to
Mm,
point to point. And so when I built FI Home Services with my partners, the one thing that we said was we need to really map out how do we do things, not to make it so rigid, but to truly understand what happens first, second, third, fourth. And so we really did that in the manner of developing workflows. And it truly was from a design thinking perspective, which was really from the customer's lens. So if a customer is interested in our services, what happens? And then from there, how do we get them onboarded? And from onboarded, how do we get them scheduled for the quarterly maintenance? How do we, understand if there's something else going on, et cetera, et cetera. And interestingly enough, because we were taking a look at processes, we also understood that we had to develop a widget, if you will. And I'm just calling it that because it's going to be a super, super, super cool announcement towards the beginning of next year, 2025. And we had to develop this widget because it didn't exist.
mhm.
And so instead of being in the box with, well, this has always been done this way, we realized this has never been done. And so we needed to be the frontier of it, which meant we really had to keep revisiting our processes to say, is this working? We had to have beta people come in to say, okay, give us feedback. And it really was from the experience of not having this type of thing and having a lot of chaos to now having processes developed that are brand spanking new because it's a new industry, and realizing that without the customer's feedback, it doesn't make sense to keep them that way. So we've really been thoughtful about how to truly architect architect these processes in FI Home Services.
Yeah, I think it's really critical for other leaders to exactly what you said is to acknowledge, especially in a either startup, entrepreneurial, business
Mhm.
growth phase, that you are speaking to who you are buying or who's buying your product or services, because they're going to give you that insight and feedback to modify your process. We at the Culture Think Tank, we think it's hugely critical is that customer journey. Whether you're a SaaS company, whether they're using your widget, whether they're in the consulting realm, that there has to be a flow for those individuals so they have the best experience possible, but then they can give you that best feedback so you can make changes to make the next experience even better. So I think it's amazing that you're really thinking that way. So is there anything else you'd like to share or add with fellow leaders from your journey as an entrepreneur and also as a CEO?
One thing that I 100% learned very early on is that I'm not an expert in all things, but there are people out there that are incredibly smart and talented. And you have to figure out who your team is in order to get the best of the best. And so, for any person that is embarking on a journey to be a C suite leader or to be a CEO, my biggest piece of advice and again learning lesson is don't feel like you have to go it alone, because there are lots of different folks out there to give you advice, but then there's also people who are looking to support you.
Hmm.
And that is something that I think sometimes we don't ask for help because we're either afraid or intimidated, or we feel we need to have all the answers as the person, quote unquote, in charge. But I think the more you let people in and you involve them, the more ownership of the company they get, and actually the more profitable and successful your overall organization becomes. And so that's my biggest takeaway and piece of advice is let people in, let people help you, support you. Your organization will thank you for it.
Oh, I think that's some very sage advice. So, Diane, I've enjoyed having you on our Leadership Lovers podcast. Thank you again for your insights.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Leadership Lovers podcast. Find all our Leadership Lovers episodes on the Culture Think Tank website at www.theculturethinktank.com or listen on your favorite streaming platform. We'd love to hear from you about the challenges you have faced as a leader. Tune in weekly as we invite leaders to share their experiences in strengthening culture and performance, one action at a time.